Hello children, this is Dr. Minithavan and today I have brought for you CBSE Class 10th Geography Chapter 7 Lifelines of National Economy. The pace of development of a country depends upon the production of goods and services as well as their movement over the space. Today, the world has been converted into a large village, a global village, with the help of efficient and fast moving transport. India, our country, is well linked with rest of the world. So in this chapter, we will see how modern means of transport and communication serve as the lifeline of our nation and its modern economy. Transport and communication are lifelines of national economy. Countries' development depends on production of goods as well as their transportation. Technological improvement enables us to develop land, water, and airways to connect with world for trade. Exchange of goods among people, states, or countries is known as trade. Traders are people who do such exchanges with the help of transport and communication. Today, railways, waterways, airways, newspaper, radio, television, cinema, internet, they all help in socio-economic progress of India. Still, there is a need of dense and efficient network of transport and communication for local, national, and global trade. As I told you earlier, movement of goods and services can be there over three important domains of the earth, that is, land, water, and air. Based on these, transport can be classified like land, water, and air. Land transport is done by roadways, railways, or pipelines. Water transport can be inland or overseas using water as transportation medium. Air transport can be done by domestic and international airways. So let's first discuss land transport, and in this we will start with roadways. India has one of the largest road network in the world, aggregating to about 2.3 million kilometers. The importance of road transport is growing over rail transport. So there are many reasons why it is considered better than other modes of transport. First, the construction cost of roads is much lower than that of railway lines. Roads can cover more geographically harder locations that cannot be done by railways. Roads can be made easily on higher gradients of slopes, or we can say an inclined part of a road, a slope, and can be easily built in mountains such as Himalayas, where there is more dissected and undulating topography. Means the land is not, it's there are a lot of ups and downs. It's not plain. It helps to improve the accessibility in these areas of difficult terrain and have helped the economic development of the area. Road transport is economical for few persons and transporting relatively smaller amount of goods over a short distance. It also helps door to door service, so cost of loading and unloading is much lower. It is used as feeder to other modes of transport. Road transport provides link between railway stations, airports, and seaports. Now we will learn about the classification of roads in India. Roads are classified in six classes according to their capacity. Uh, it means number of traffic lanes. So first, it is golden quadrilateral superhighways. The government has launched a major road development project linking four top metropolitan cities, Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, and Mumbai, and back to Delhi, by six lane superhighways. They are called golden quadrilaterals. These highway projects are being implemented by the National Highway Authority of India. The north south corridor links Srinagar, that is in Jammu and Kashmir, and Kanyakumari, that is in Tamil Nadu. And east west corridor, it connects Silchar, Assam, and Porbandar, Gujarat. The major objective of these superhighways is to reduce time and distance. Next are national highways. The national highways are a network of trunk roads that are laid and maintained by Central Public Work Department, that is CPWD. The historical Sher Shah Suri Marg was called National Highway 1 between Delhi and Amritsar. It used to be there. In 2010, highways were renumbered. Now NH1 runs between Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. It passes from Uri to Baramulla, Srinagar, Sonmarg, Zojila, Dras, Kargil, and Leh. Third are state highways. Roads connecting a state capital with different district headquarters are known as state highways. These roads are constructed and maintained by State Public Work Department, SPWD, in state and union territories. Then there are district roads. These roads connect the district headquarters with other places of the district. These roads are maintained by Zilla Parishad. Other roads. Rural roads, which link rural areas and villages with town, are classified under this category. These roads receive special attention under Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana. And sixth one is border roads. Border road organization, Government of India undertaking, constructs and maintains road in the bordering areas of the country. This organization was established in 1960 for the development of roads of strategic importance in northern and northeastern border areas. So we classified roads on the basis of capacity in these six types. Now, roads can also be classified on the basis of type of material used for the construction. That is metal roads and unmetal roads. Metal roads may be made of cement, concrete, or even bitumen of coal. These are also all-weather roads. Unmetal roads go out of use in the rainy season. Road density. The length of road per 100 square kilometer is known as the density of roads. Density of all roads vary from like in different states and UTs. It is 12.14 kilometer in Jammu and Kashmir to 517.77 kilometers in Kerala. The national average of road density was 142.66 kilometers in 2011. Now we will have a look on the challenges in the road transportation. Road network is still inadequate with respect to the volume of passengers and the traffic. half of the roads are unmetalled, so get easily damaged in the rainy season. National highways are also inadequate. Roadways are highly congested in cities. Distribution of roads is not uniform in the country. Bridges and culverts are old and narrow. Now, transportation by railways. Railways are the principal mode of transportation for carrying passengers as well as huge roads and huge loads and bulky goods for long and short distances in India. It also helps in activities like business, sightseeing, pilgrimage, and transportation of goods over the long distances. Railways, they have become more important in India's economy. They are helpful in economic development of the country as it accelerates the development of industry and agriculture. It is the largest public sector undertaking. Now, the distribution pattern of railway network in the country has been largely influenced by physiographic, economic, and administrative factors. For example, the northern plains, they have most favorable conditions like vast level land, high population density, and rich agricultural resources, but large number of rivers, they pose a great problem in laying down the railway tracks. Himalayan mountainous regions were unfavorable because of high terrain, sparse population, lack of economic opportunities. Another place with unfavorable circumstances were sandy plains of Rajasthan, swamps of Gujarat, forested tracts of MP, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Jharkhand. Now, there is a gauge system in Indian railway tracks. We have different kind of gauges. Uh, Nowadays we have a unigauge system. It means that all over the country similar type of gauges are being made. Earlier there used to be three different kind of gauges: narrow gauge, meter gauge, and broad gauge. Broad gauge having track of 1.676 meters, meter gauge having track of 1 meter, and narrow gauge having track of 0.762 and 0.610 meter. The Indian Railways is now organized into 16 zones. Now we will talk about the challenges faced by railways. Rail transport suffers from certain problems as well, which are: construction of bridges is required across rivers, having wide beds for lying down the railway lines. In the hilly terrains also of the peninsular region, railway tracks are laid through low hills, gaps, or tunnels. The Himalayan mountainous regions are also very unfavorable for the construction of railway lines due to the highest elevation points in the surface, sparse population, and lack of economic opportunities. This I told you earlier also, no? So it is difficult to lay railway lines on sandy plains of Rajasthan and swamps of Gujarat. Though the development of Konkan Railway, it facilitated the movement of passengers and goods in this most important economic region, but it also faces problems such as sinking of track and landslides. Many passengers who travel, without tickets, they, sometimes they certain thefts are there. Damaging railway property is also very common, and people stop the trains and pull the chain unnecessarily. So people, if a passenger, if they are traveling without tickets, so it's loss of revenue. And people, if they are stopping the trains without a need, that also poses a problem. Now, transportation by pipelines. Earlier, pipelines were used to transport water to cities and industries. Today, we are using pipelines for transporting crude oil, petroleum products, natural gas, and solid products in form of slurry from its source to the destination, such as refineries, fertilizer factories, thermal power plants. Pipeline transport network is a new arrival on the transportation map of India. Its initial cost is high, but later running costs are very nominal. Pipeline network uses pipes, usually placed underground, to transport and distribute the fluids. These are used to transport water, as I've told you earlier also, crude oil, petroleum products and natural gas, fertilizers, uh, you know, solids can also be transported through a pipeline when converted into a slurry. It rules out the transshipment, means the losses and delays which are caused while sending any of these things from one place to another, if they are being sent by road or some other medium. So it rules out that transshipment means while movement, uh, whatever the losses and delays are there. Refineries such as Barauni, Mathura, Panipat, and gas based fertilizer plants are entirely dependent on pipelines for their working today. There are three important network of pipeline transportation in our country, from oil fields in Upper Assam to Kanpur, UP, via Guwahati, Barauni, and Allahabad. It has branches from Barauni via Rajband to Morigram, and Guwahati to Siliguri. So this is one pipeline moving from Assam to Kanpur. Then another one is from Sadia in Gujarat to Jalandhar in Punjab via Virgam, Mathura, Delhi, and Panipat. It branches to connect Koyali, Chakshu, and other places. Then gas pipeline from Hazira in Gujarat to Jagdishpur in UP via Vijaypur in MP. It has branches to Kota, Rajasthan, Shahjahanpur, Babrala, and other places in UP. It is uh, prominently called HBJ. H from Hazira, B for Vijaynagar, and J for Jagdishpur. So it is called HBJ. Now, waterways. It can be classified in inland, which takes place in lakes and water, and seaborne, which can be coastal or deep seas. Now, waterways, they are the cheapest means of transport. They are most suitable for carrying heavy and bulky goods. It is a fuel efficient and environment friendly mode of transport. It can be inland and it can be seaborne. Inland waterways in India are Mandavi, Kumbarzua Canal in Goa, and Zuari River, they are in Goa, and then Sundarban, then Barak River in Assam, and backwaters of Kerala, through which transportation takes place. Inland navigation of 4,500 kilometers is there in India, and out of these, 3,700 kilometers are navigable by mechanized boats. 12 major seaports and 181 medium seaports are there. Uh, it handles 95% of India's foreign trade. Now, national waterways in India are there. So, the first one is the Ganga River between Allahabad and Haldia, and second is NW2 or National Waterworks number 2, that is from the Brahmaputra River between Sadia and Dhubri, that is 891 kilometers long. The uh, Ganga River waterworks, that is around 1620 kilometers long, and the third one, that is National Waterways number 3, the West Coast Canal in Kerala, कोटापुरमा, कोलम, उदयमंडल, चंपाकारा, ये जो हैं 205 किलोमीटर्स लॉन्ग स्ट्रेच है. देन national waterways number 4, specified stretches of Godavari and Krishna river along with Kakinada Puducherry stretch of canals, that is 1078 kilometers long. Then national waterworks number 5, they are the specified stretches of river Brahmani along with Matai river, delta channels of Mahanadi and Brahmani river and east coast canal, that is around 588 kilometers long. Now, major seaports we'll be talking about. I told you that there are 12 major seaports and 181 medium and minor seaports. So we have seen that India's trade with foreign countries is carried out from ports. Around 95%, I have already told you that foreign trade is carried out by these seaports. Now we have a very long coastline, that is 7,516.6 kilometers, and you know, certain major ports, they are on the west coast and some of them they are on the east coast. So we'll be starting from west coast. Kandla in Kutch, that is on the western coast. First I'll be taking western coast only. Kandla in Kutch was the first port which was developed after independence. Now it is known as Deen Dayal Upadhyay Port. Kandla is a tidal port. It caters to the convenient handling of exports and imports of highly productive granary and industrial belts stretching across Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat. Mostly cotton is being exported from this port. And this port was made just after independence because we lost one port, Karachi port, to Pakistan. So to compensate the loss of that port, we made this port. Second is Mumbai in Maharashtra, biggest port with a spacious, natural and well sheltered harbour. Then there is Jawaharlal Nehru port, that is also in Maharashtra, that was planned to decongest the Mumbai port, that was made to decongest, and it serves as a hub port for this region. Then if we come towards Goa, there is Marmagao port. It's a premier iron ore exporting port of India and it accounts for 50% of iron ore export. Then there is Mangalore port, located in Karnataka. It caters to the export of iron ore concentrates from Kundramukh mines, which are there in Karnataka. Then Kochi. Kochi is the extreme southwestern post, located at the entrance of the lagoon with a natural harbour. Now, these six ports I have discussed are on western coast. Now I'll discuss six other major ports which are on the eastern coast. So first we'll start from Haldia. Haldia port was developed as a subsidiary port in order to relieve growing pressure on the Kolkata port. So to decongest Kolkata port, this port was made, like that of Jawaharlal Nehru port. Now, Kolkata is an inland riverine port. This serves as very large and rich hinterland of Ganga-Brahmaputra basin. Being a tidal port, it requires constant dredging of Hooghly. Then if we come down, then it's Paradeep, located in Odisha. It also specializes in export of iron ore because that region is iron ore rich region. Then comes Vishakhapatnam. Vishakhapatnam is deepest landlocked and well protected port. Originally conceived as an outlet for iron ore exports. Then there is Chennai in Tamil Nadu, one of the oldest artificial ports of India. It ranks next to Mumbai port in terms of volume of cargo and trade. And last but not the least, Tuticorin port in Tamil Nadu. It is situated at the extreme southeast, and it's a natural harbor, and rich hinterland is there. Huge variety of cargo is sent to Sri Lanka and Maldives from this port. Now we'll discuss transportation by airways. Airways is the fastest, most comfortable and prestigious mode of transport. Air travel has made access easier to the terrain like high mountains, deserts, and also long oceanic stretches with great ease. For example, northeastern states and the interior parts of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand are easily accessible. Now we will talk about service providers. The air transport was nationalized in 1953. Air India provides domestic and international air services. Pawan Hans Helicopters Limited, they provide helicopter services to ONGC, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, in its offshore operations to inaccessible areas and difficult terrains. Terrains like northeastern states, interior parts of J&K, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, where there are long rivers, isolated regions are there, dense forests are there, and continuous flooding conditions are also there. So they are very helpful in those areas. Air travel is not within the reach of the common people. So this is a drawback. Otherwise, it is one of the fastest mode of transportation. For domestic services, we have Indian Airlines, Alliance Airs, private scheduled airlines, and non-scheduled airlines. And for international service, Air India is there. Indian Airlines have extended their services to South and Southeast Asia and Middle East also. Now we will be talking about the major airports in India. First and foremost is Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi, then Mumbai in Maharashtra, Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport. In Bengaluru, Karnataka, it is Kampigora International Airport. In Hyderabad, Telangana, Rajiv Gandhi International Airport. In Chennai, we have Meenambakkam International Airport. In Kolkata, we have Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose International Airport. In Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, we have International Airport. And in Amritsar also, that is Sri Guru Ramdas Ji International Airport. Earlier it used to be called Raja Sansi also, because that is the name of the village where it is there. So now, very interesting fact about Kerala is that Kerala is the only state which has 4 international airports. Now, communication. If we talk about communication, exchange of information, that is called communication. With rapid development, long distance communication is possible without physical movement of sender or receiver. So sending or receiving information is called communication. Now technologies such as television, communication, telecommunication, radio, press, films, they help in to communicate within no time. Now communication can be of 2 types: personal and mass communication. Personal, person to person communication is called personal communication, which is done by using postal network or telecommunication facilities, conveying information to a very large number of people at once. That is called mass communication. It can be done by using radio, television, newspaper, films. So many people, they are conveyed information at the same time, and this is called mass communication. Now, communication by post. Indian postal network is the largest in the world. It handles parcels as well as the personal written communications. First class mail is airlifted between stations covering both land and air. Card and envelopes are considered first class mail. Second class mail includes book packets, registered newspapers, and periodicals. They are carried by surface mails covering land and water transport. To facilitate quick delivery of mails in large towns and cities, six mail channels have been introduced recently. They are Rajdhani Channel, Metro Channel, Green Channel, Business Channel, Bulk Mail Channel, and Periodical Channel. India has one of the largest telecom networks in Asia. Now, telecommunication is, as I have told you, largest telecom network we are having in Asia. The STD or subscriber trunk trialing, this facility is has been made possible by integrating the development in space technology with communication technology. Mass communication. Mass communication provides entertainment, and it also creates awareness among people about various national programs and policies. It includes radio, television, newspaper, magazines, books, and films. Radio channels like Akashvani broadcast a variety of programs in national, regional, and local languages. Doordarshan, the national television channel, is one of the largest terrestrial networks in the world. India publishes a large number of newspapers in about 100 languages and dialects. Largest number of newspapers are published in Hindi, followed by English and Urdu. India is largest producer of feature films, movies. The Central Board of Film Certification is the national authority to certify Indian and foreign films. Next is international trade. The exchange of goods among people, states, and countries is referred to as trade. Trade is of two types, local and international. Local trade between villages, cities, states means within the country, and international trade between two countries, that is called international trade. It is considered as the economic barometer for a country. Export and import are the components of trade. Now, the balance of trade of a country is the difference between the export and the import. When the value of export exceeds the value of import, it is called favorable balance of trade. When the value of export, that is more than the value of imports, whatever we are buying, that is less, the one we are selling to foreign countries, that is more. That is favorable balance of trade. If the values of imports that exceeds the value of exports, it is termed as unfavorable balance of trade. Means if we are buying more and selling less to the foreign countries, that is not good, not favorable for the country. The commodities exported from India to other countries, they include gems and jewelry, chemicals and related products, agriculture and allied products. The commodities which are imported, what we buy from foreign countries, they include petroleum, petroleum products, then again gems and jewelry, then chemical and related products, base metals, electronic items, machinery, and certain other things. Now we'll discuss tourism as a trade. Tourism has proved itself as one of the most important aspect of trade. Tourism in India has grown substantially more than 15 million people are directly engaged in tourism industry. So tourism in India, it promotes national integration, it provides support to local handicrafts and cultural pursuits, it helps in development of international understanding about Indian culture and heritage. Foreign tourists visit India for heritage tourism, ecotourism, adventure tourism, cultural tourism, medical tourism, and business tourism also. Rajasthan, Goa, Jammu and Kashmir, and temple towns of South India, they're favorite among the tourists. It contributes to lot of foreign exchange. Then there is a possibility of tourism in northeastern states and interior parts of Himalayas also. But due to certain strategic reasons, these have not been encouraged. So here our topic comes to an end. Um, we'll meet again with something new. Till then, keep learning, keep revising. Goodbye.